Roger Griffiths here, the publisher of The Hub. Welcome to this, our continuing video series, Trump's Trade War. Each and every day, we're bringing you experts from The Hub's extensive network across Canada of thinkers and doers, reflecting on this trade war. What does it mean for Canada? What are the risks? We're extremely fortunate to have on the program today Daniel Defoe. He's the president and CEO of the Montreal Economic Institute, known as MEI. Daniel, great to be in conversation with you.
Thank you very much, Roger. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Likewise. Well, we appreciate your writing in The Hub, and I want to get to some of your thoughts on pipelines. It's become a big story in Quebec and nationally, but first just benefit from you being in the Belle Province to tell us a little bit about the mood there. How are people reacting to the threat of Trump tariffs, specifically these tariffs on aluminum, which could have a big impact on the province's economy?
Yes, thank you for the question, Rudyard. Obviously, the reaction in Quebec has been very strong to these tariffs, as we could expect, as a matter of fact, considering that this is a sector of Quebec's economy that's crucially important, vitally important, especially in some regions of the province where these may be some of the only employers, quite frankly, of any outsized importance. And Quebec is a major contributor to America's manufacturing sector through its steel and aluminum. So this is clearly a measure that will have adverse impacts on America's economy as well.
Mm-hmm. So, Daniel, when you think about
It is definitely ideologically driven from this administration.
Yeah. So, Daniel, when you think about Quebec and its history, there's been a lot of, I think, generally like warm feelings. Am I incorrect, between Quebec and the United States? Maybe warmer, frankly, than the feelings at times between English Canada and the United States. To what extent is there a bit of a kind of culture shock going on in Quebec to see the Americans reacting the way they are and drawing Quebec into this trade war?
Yes, one of the interesting things to note, if you look at NAFTA, the very beginning of this, Quebec was always one of the provinces that was the most vocally pushing in its favor, the same as it was the first province to push for free trade with Europe. So Quebec has always had this kind of free trading perspective across party lines. And if we look at the more recent history, Quebec has cut deals with New York State to sell a significant chunk of its hydropower. What was supposed to be excess production of hydropower, which, as it turns out, now we badly need, but it's going to go to New York State anyway. So to have tariffs imposed on steel and aluminum, which production requires a lot of hydroelectricity, is certainly seen as a slap in the face.
Wow. Now let's go to pipelines, because my perception, Danielle, is that Quebec has long been, in terms of public opinion, a climate that has not been friendly to this idea that we should be drawing energy out of Western Canada through an eastern pipeline across Ontario, across Quebec, to get it to tidewater somewhere along our Atlantic coast. That seems to have changed, Daniel, at least in terms of some of the recent public opinion polls we're seeing in Quebec.
Yes and no. There's an interesting dichotomy with the popularity of these projects in the province of Quebec. We at MEI have been conducting polling on this issue for a number of years, and it's been consistent that a majority or a strong plurality, but generally a majority of Quebecers would be in favor of these projects. However, their politicians are not necessarily following suit, because the people who are supporting these projects are not as passionate about it as the people who are opposed to them. This is a classic case of public choice theory, if we're being specific. However, what we've seen in the last couple of weeks is the number of Quebecers in favor reaching what is, to my knowledge, a new historical high at 74%, according to Angus Reid, which puts us in uncharted territories. And the Premier, François Legault, can no longer ignore that fact, and neither should other Quebec politicians. So there is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for these projects to go forward as they should.
Well, let's see if that happens. Is there, Daniel, also an opportunity like we're seeing here in the rest of Canada around things like free trade between the provinces? Obviously, Quebec historically has been, well, you might say assertive or defensive. I don't want to characterize it, one way or another about its provincial rights, its provincial prerogatives. To what extent do you think there could be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to liberalize a bit the Quebec economy, to open it up to the rest of the country, to more trade, and maybe even to change some of the issues that MEI has been so good at over the years of arguing in Quebec for a more free trade, free market approach to economic development in the province?
Quite frankly, if I'm being honest, Edward, I think this is going to be a tougher one.
Okay.
So we produce this ranking of the provinces and their willingness to do away with these internal trade barriers. And Quebec is consistently ranking dead last. And as we've been pushing this issue, for many years, but in the past few weeks, we have given a lot of interviews in the province, trying to explain to them what this issue is all about. And I cannot say that the provincial government has seemed all that interested in making meaningful changes to its approach. The sad reality is there's a lot of corporate interest at play. And again, we get back to public choice theory, where there is a diffuse benefit, but there's people who really have a lot at stake. So it's hard to get that coalition together for politicians. And I don't see François Legault taking this on, sadly. As much as we will keep pushing for it, this is not what I'm most hopeful about.
And Daniel, if you think that we might see, let's hope not, but let's say early in March, I think March 3rd is the deadline when Trump said he would come back after 30 days with more specifics on Canada tariffs. If those tariffs were big, if this trade war really kicks off, could that change the climate in Quebec? If the economic pain really starts to be felt, are you, it's strange to think that good things can come from bad things, but do you think that could be the potential to break the logjam around, some of these reform issues?
Potentially. There will come a point where everything is on the table. And we have a once in a lifetime opportunity to get things right. And if we look at the things that our government should be doing, the number one is to restore a competitive advantage. It has been going way down. When we look at the corporate income tax in this country, we are now on average higher than France. So it is very hard to compete with the United States. That used to be something that was in our advantage until the first Trump administration. It no longer is, not even close. So this is something that we need to look at. We need to look at this inventory of regulation that we have in this country, which has really adverse impact on the dynamism of our economy. It seems like sometimes we just cannot keep up with the pace of our neighbor down south when it comes to chasing new opportunities. We do not have that vitality or set of regulations is promoting some kind of status quo that we badly need to get out of to go out there, chase new markets, and forge a path forward for this country, which at this very moment we seem to be lacking, Rudyard.
Yeah. Well, Daniel Default, thank you so much for coming on the program. You're the CEO and president of the Montreal Economic Institute. We always appreciate your writings and contributions here at the Hub.
Thank you so much, Rudyard.
Well, thank you for listening and watching this latest version of Trump's trade war, our continuing daily series on the big issues facing Canada related to this potential tariff threat. We're going to continue to cover this story with perspectives all across Canada, bringing you the best thinking and analysis of our writers like Daniel Defoe. Thanks again for watching. We'll do this again soon. Bye-bye.